It's Nick.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids wasn't a superhero epic. It wasn't a battle in space. It wasn't even a fairy tale. What it became was something far more unusual, more creative, and more lasting. A backyard inflated into an ordeal of survival, where the mundane became fearful and the familiar became magical. Behind the enormous Cheerios, the maniacal lawnmower, and the huge blades of grass was pandemonium held together with duct tape, imagination, and desperation. The movie people recall as a heartwarming family outing had a start marred by mishaps, near catastrophes, and bizarre choices. The director walked out before shooting began. Rick Moranis came aboard only after larger stars dropped out. And in a Hollywood juggernaut-dominated summer, one small movie stole the show with Batman of all subjects as its secret ace. What you have here are 20-odd surprising and at times tragic facts about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the 1989 backyard epic that wasn't meant to work, but did so spectacularly. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Star Vault TV, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. The original idea started with a far bleaker vision than you might recognize. Fact number 1. The film we know as a family-friendly adventure nearly began life as a horror movie. Stuart Gordon, the cult horror director of Reanimator and From Beyond, created the initial idea. When Gordon originally proposed the concept, it wasn't a family comedy, this was a survival thriller. In his initial conception, the shrinking kids weren't playing on a fantasy lawn, they were fighting through a hellish landscape. Grass towered like skyscraper walls, bugs turned into monstrous killers, and the mood tipped toward danger instead of humor. But Gordon's own life was altered. Soon after, he had a child, and the transformation mellowed him. He began to view the story as not a nightmare, but an adventure as seen through the eyes of a child. Giant grass wasn't just a trap anymore, but a possibility for wonder. Gigantic toys elicited awe rather than fear. The threat was still there, but it was exciting instead of frightening. In so doing, Gordon inadvertently developed the template for one of Disney's greatest live-action successes, turning what might have been a testing ground horror film into a tale about childhood fantasy, peril, and victory. And before the tale was completed, even the title came close to drowning the entire venture. Fact number 2. The title of the movie had strange permutations that nearly ensured failure. Initial drafts were titled Teeny Weenies, Grounded, and The Backyard. None of them weighed in like a summer blockbuster. They were too goofy, too generic, or forgettable. The turning point came not in marketing sessions, but in the script. In a desperate moment of frenzied confession, the hapless scientist Wayne Selinsky exclaims, "Honey, I Shrunk the Kids." Disney producers read it in the script and knew they had a winner. It was humorous, to the point, and immediately defined the premise. Grammar mistake and all, it stuck. Critics later ridiculed the title for its improper use of shrunk rather than shrank, but the line was airtight, the sort of frantic, sloppy thing a harried dad might actually blurt out after incinerating his kids by accident. The alleged gaffe turned genius marketing, testament that sometimes flaw is the hook that keeps audiences hooked forever. A good idea and a title that sticks, however, are worthless without the right filmmaker to execute them. Though, fact number 3. Stuart Gordon himself was to direct, but never had the opportunity. Disney had approved the project with him on board, months into development. However, Gordon seriously became ill and had to withdraw. For a brief moment, it seemed like the project would collapse completely. Disney scrambled, finally deciding on Joe Johnston. At the time, Johnston was not yet an established director. As a matter of fact, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids would be his breakout. Johnston had something precious, though, extensive experience with special effects. He had served as a visual effects artist on Star Wars, and even received an Oscar for his efforts on Raiders of the Lost Ark inside Disney Gambled, and Johnston infused a lighter, more playful style that transformed what might have been a dark effects reel into a warm, humorous, adventurous family classic. Gordon's vision endured, reworked by Johnston's sensibilities, and the rest is history. The same sort of pandemonium resulted with casting. Fact number 4. Rick Moranis was not Disney's initial choice to play Wayne Szalinski. The studio originally had Chevy Chase in mind for the part. Chase's resume, Caddyshack, Vacation, Fletch, made him perfect for a hapless scientist, but scheduling issues made him decline. John Candy was Disney's next choice, and the studio offered him the part, hoping his affable everyman appeal would charm audiences. Candy declined, but fate intervened when Candy suggested his buddy Rick Moranis. Candy had previously worked with him and understood that Moranis had the talent to combine nerdy awkwardness with real warmth. That one piece of advice altered movie history. Moranis didn't simply play the part, he created it. His definition of Wayne wasn't that of a slapstick knucklehead or a by-the-book authority figure. He was the type of offbeat dad whose misfires were as lovable as his victories. It was one of Moranis' greatest roles, and without it, the film might never have resonated so deeply with families. Even what audiences in the neighborhood saw wasn't actual. Fact number 5. The Szalinski house and surrounding suburban neighborhood were constructed from the ground up in Mexico City at Churubusco Studios. Each lawn, each house, each sidewalk was created. Fewer than a dozen shots were filmed in California to create realism. The set allowed directors complete creative license to drown backyards, blow things up, and transition seamlessly into the giant backyard sets. The trick was so convincing that audiences generally never suspected the suburban universe to be an elaborate illusion. That backyard naturally was the film's centerpiece. Fact number 6. In 1989, there was no CGI to fall back on. The magic was created by massive props. Artists made 30-foot blades of grass out of fiberglass and foam. They created Lego bricks the size of cars and rolled cookie crumbles out of plaster. Maybe best of all was the enormous breakfast bowl brimming with 16,000 gallons of milk-like substance, topped by giant Cheerios carved out of foam. It wasn't special effects, a physical playground, one the performers could touch, climb, and crawl through. For the child cast, it wasn't make-believe. They really were in a giant's world. Engineering feats persisted with the Bumblebee ride. Fact number 7. To achieve the sequence in which the children ride on a bee across the backyard, the crew constructed various versions. A full-scale bee prop, a rigged platform for close-up work, and even a $30,000 mini-robotic bee for stunts. Weeks of careful engineering and editing produced one smooth illusion. On camera, it appeared easy, but in reality it was one of the most complex effects in the whole film. Water was just as cunning. Fact number 8. Ordinary water on screen resembled mist, underwhelming and intangible. The effects team needed to gel it until each drop was gelatin-like descending from the heavens. When it landed on the gigantic sets, the effect was pyrotechnic, with each drop splashing like a miniature tidal wave. For the child actors, it wasn't rain, it was a syrup storm soaking and battering them with otherworldly force. Of all the creations, none were as surprising to audiences as Auntie, the endearing ant friend. Fact number 9. Disney bosses were afraid he was too scary and wanted him reworked to appear more cartoon-like. But director Joe Johnston pushed back and argued the ant's demise would not be emotional if the beast was too cute. The final puppet, operated by up to 16 puppeteers, achieved a precarious balance, creepy but sympathetic. Despite the studio's skepticism, Auntie emerged as the star, winning people over and leaving viewers really saddened at his passing. Food props were no less creative. Fact number 10. The giant Oreo cookie was partially edible. There were some foam and wood sections for stability, but others were actually cake and frosting for the close-ups where the kids actually ate. The set reeked of a bakery, and during breaks the child cast buzzed on sugar highs as they crawled all over sticky, melting frosting. Continuity mistakes got by too. Fact number 11. Hair color for Diane Szalinski changes halfway through production from blonde to red because Disney requested actress Marcia Strassman to dye it halfway through shooting. Footage early on wasn't reshot, and the inconsistency is still seen today. Even the credits broke new ground. Fact number 12. The animated opening, where tiny kids dodge typewriters and record players, was one of the first sequences to blend traditional animation with 3D modeling. It came from Kroyer Films, a small studio that included future Pixar legend Andrew Stanton and even Gwen Stefani's brother. Few noticed at the time, but the sequence helped push animation toward a new, digital frontier. The title itself created a stir. Fact number 13. Grammar sticklers opined that Wayne could have uttered shrank, not shrunk. The flap was so great that the film won a satirical award for worst grammar in a title. Disney dismissed the criticism, stating the line felt natural to Wayne's character, and eventually fans accepted it as one of the film's offbeat features. Audiences in 1989 received more than one film. Fact number 14. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids came with Tummy Trouble, a Roger Rabbit short. It was Disney's first original animated short in 25 years, and its double billing served to make the movie an event, rediscovering a theatrical tradition that Disney had abandoned years ago. Centered to it all was Rick Moranis. Fact number 15. Following a series of hits, disaster struck his personal life. When his wife died in 1991, Moranis left Hollywood to raise his two small children. For decades, he was nowhere to be found, only periodically appearing for voice acting or cameos. Fans wondered what had happened to him, not knowing that he was living the most crucial role of all, full-time father. His promised comeback for the reboot Shrunk in 2020 was greeted with enthusiasm close to hysteria. But the children also rode the film. Fact number 16. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was both the rise and fall of Hollywood for most of the child stars. Robert Oliveri, Jared Rushton, and Amy O'Neill all lost touch with the business shortly after, while Thomas Wilson Brown persisted in small parts. For them, the movie was both a highlight and a goodbye. The music also should be noted. Fact number 17. James Horner's grand, playful score lifted every scene, but was never officially released until 2009 when a small independent label pressed only 3,000. They disappeared immediately and became valued collector's items. Horner went on to score Titanic, Braveheart, and Avatar before dying in a plane crash in 2015. Of course, all of this was for naught if the audiences didn't come. Fact number 18. Batman year 1989. Tim Burton's gothic blockbuster swept the headlines, making Honey, I Shrunk the Kids seem like an afterthought. But families soon found that Batman was too violent